Okay, so I want to do just a brief drill down on each one of these components. The first one being literature and thought. Again, three in this package. It's 3 titles in hardback, also with the digital associated with it. So essentially, I like to say it's short selections of complex text grouped thematically around an essential question. Okay, so here is our essential question. This is from Cluster 2 in To Be a Hero. So what makes a hero? The thinking skill we'll be using is analyzing. And notice, pursuant to the New Teaks multi-genre standard, we're going to read a short story, an essay, an autobiography, a poem, an Arthurian legend, a drama, but they're all tying back to what makes a hero. And so depending on the subject matter of the book itself, the title, the literature and thought title you choose, they're going to be different questions, different essential questions in each. And there are usually 4 different clusters. So there'll be 4 different mini essential questions that that kind of speak to the theme and the essential question of the entire book. And so, here's The Adventure of an Egyptian Tomb, Immigrant Kids. Notice it's just, it's black and white, but to us, it's about the text. We really took our time and selected rich passages so that they're not only engaging, but there are levels of meaning. So if you want to do close reading, these are absolutely phenomenal for multiple reads for students. The titles you have to pick from are historical events and eras. So that's one section of them, one category. The next is literary themes. Then lastly, the literary genres. I'm a big nerd, so fantasy and sci-fi, that's probably what I would want to go with. There is a 4th category that is government and current events with 3 titles that are really phenomenal. The lexiles are quite high, so I would probably save those for high school unless you have a lot of high flyers and you really want to drill down on the nature of government and that sort of thing. The teacher guide has a lot of really good teacher support to help the students really dive deep on the critical thinking aspect and discussions. Okay, so there's going to be discussion questions. There's also going to be writing activities. So we can pull in, we're writing about what we're reading per the New Teaks, right? So that's really going to help with the discussions and that sort of thing. To further help with the discussions, like I said, the Great Books Foundation partnered up with us, and they wrote discussion guides. So shared inquiry discussion guides around almost all of the titles. There are a few that they didn't, but most of them they did. And here's just some of the interpretive questions. That's what they call them, interpretive questions, meant to elicit critical thinking and opinions from the students. And we test those opinions and talk about them and have classroom discussions around them. Okay, that's literature and thought. Secondly, let's look at novels. We have over 30,000 titles to choose from, and if you happen to choose something that we don't have on our list, we can get it on our list. So you've got a lot of selections there. We also have at our company a ton of title-specific teacher resources. So if you choose a more popular title like Bud Not Buddy or, A To Kill a Mockingbird, something like that, we most likely will have a title-specific teacher resource that goes with that, and that will just come with the package. Okay. The Essential Guide to Writing and Language. So again, that's going to be 8-year digital with a class set. This essentially is a grammar, usage mechanics, and composition handbook. Okay, so as we're looking through some of the pages, there's full writing process in the beginning, and then when it gets to the more grammar-y type subjects, it really is, it's very student-friendly, very concise. So it's like, here's the rule, here's some examples. There's a lot of charts in there that sort of just are very clean and concise. And again, here's the rule, here's an example. With the writing parts, there's actually student models in there as well. So it's really just meant to be a reference to pull in when you need to do a mini lesson on grammar or something like that. Now, associated with the chapters in Essential Guide are the skill sheets. So every chapter is going to have a number of skill sheets. So chapter 20 here is clauses. Chapter 22 is verbs. So if you, say you find yourself in year 5 of this adoption, and for whatever reason, this group of kids just missed the comma train for whatever reason, you can just pull these worksheets in as needed as extra practice. Okay, so there's a lot of good grammar work that we can do here and apply in the literature that we're reading or in our compositions. So those are the skill sheets that accompany the chapters and are correlated to the chapters in the Essential Guide. Okay, so next let's drill down on the digital high-low reading library. Like I said earlier, we picked our favorite 30 titles from our digital high-low library and digitize them and just, throwing it in for free. So we accomplished the lower reading level. And the reason these exist, by the way, just is so that if you have a kid in 8th grade that's reading on a 3rd, 4th grade reading level, you don't want to give them a 3rd grade book so it looks like a kiddie book, right? These look and feel just like on-level novels. They just have the simplified phrasing, shorter sentences and paragraphs, explanations for allusions and references, and definitions of challenging vocabulary. So that is the online high-low library. And lastly, and I know I'm flying through these things, there are actually videos on our website if you'd like to drill down even further into these products and look at them and review them and get your hands on them. Okay, let's take a look at our technology suite. It can be accessed through a browser, like on a Chromebook, or through the Apple Store or Google Play app. So in the reading parts, like in literature and thought, you can annotate and highlight. You can actually share ideas with sticky notes with your friends or the teacher. So that is the digital student editions. There's also the online practice and assessment assignment generator. So a lot of those questions, like what you saw in the Essential Guide skill sheets, we've tagged them by TEAC and loaded them up into our system. So you can say, okay, chapter 20 was, I think, clauses, right? So let's look at all the questions for chapter 20, and there'll just be buku of them. Or you can drill down and say, I need to work on this standard, or I want to have at least one question for the standard, and then we'll show you the questions, and you can add those to your custom-made test. So this is essentially an assignment, a test generator with these preloaded questions tagged by TEAC that you can select from, weight differently. The students take it; they can take it, on their computer, and as long as it's not a short answer question that would require teacher eyeballs, it does auto grade. Also, this is the new thing. This is really cool. So PowerWrite, you as the teacher, so this is an online essay writing suite. So you as the teacher would assign the prompt, and then depending on the mode of writing, be it argumentative or informative or personal narrative or research, there are different graphic organizers that you can assign. So the graphic organizers help them generate and organize their ideas, and based on the graphic organizer, they'll write the first draft, and then immediately after the first draft, we're going to evaluate and revise. It asks a series of questions, and in this case there's 21, but you as the teacher can make that, change those questions out and write your own if you'd like. Essentially, these are rubric items that we put in the form of a question, so you can self-assess, and based on that, revise your essay. This one, by the way, is, do you have an interesting introduction that states the claim clearly? So if you think, wow, I nailed it, that was great, and then, oh boy, I need to really revise and work on that. And then you get a little report, and it shows you what you might need to look at as you revise your essay. The next step, this is optional. You can actually have students read each other's essays, and you can assign who reads whom, whose reads whom's. I need to work on my grammar, huh? So then they will answer questions about their partner's work. It's usually fewer questions, and then there's another chance to revise the essay and then publish. Finally, is the final step. So when they publish it, that's technically their first draft. Or the first draft that you see, but it's really way further down the track because they've had time to self-assess and peer review, and then and this whole time you most likely will have been conferencing with the students. So their kind of first draft that you see is further down the track than it typically would be. So that's PowerWrite, and that just comes free with this package. Okay, moving on. So that is pretty much everything with the per student items. Again, 3 titles of hardback literature and thought with 8-year digital, 8-year digital essential guide with all those skill sheets, and with the 30 class set of 30 in each teacher's classroom. The digital high-low library. 2 different novels that you all will be able to select, and the 8-year digital suite with the assignment generator and the PowerWrite. So let's look at some items that we'll have in our classroom, class sets of these 2 items, and then classroom libraries. Let's look at the classroom libraries first. We actually have pulled in from other publishers some of our own books and taken our books and Lexiled them. So it's grade 6 and up, but the reading level is going to start at almost 1100 and go down all the way to under 290. So that is really low, a very low reading level that's not going to look like a kiddie book. So you'll be equipped with 90 of those titles in every teacher's classroom. And then we have our regular on-level class sets. So the essentials, a little bit of fiction and nonfiction, 60 titles, are all informational text, 60 titles there. Classroom favorites, 20 titles. New titles, so these are brand new, in the last few years that have come out and are appropriate for this level. That'll be 15 titles. And then lastly, we hear all the time that, kids really do need to see themselves in the material that they're reading. We totally agree. So we're going to throw in the multicultural collection, and that's 30 titles. Okay, so now let's have a look at Vocabulet. Like I said earlier, Vocabulet is vocab in context of rich literature. So these are authentic passages, half fiction, half nonfiction. So essentially we take a short but rich passage, pull out 10 vocab words, and we're going to do 6 mini exercises with those same 10 words. Okay, so we're going to look at context clues, look at context clues again in a different way, synonyms and antonyms, sentence completion, shades of meaning, and lastly, analogies. And note that there's a writing activity that you can pull in as well. So you can just pop these exercises in. They're very short, so you can just pop them into the curriculum in different places and really get a lot of rich vocabulary development out of that. Okay, so let's have a look at the last component, which is connections. Now, this is the centerpiece of our adoption offering, and it's a very powerful resource. So I did want you to have access to it, a class set of 30, so that you can pull it out as needed. There may be a selection that you really like. There may be a skill that you really want to hone in on, and so we're going to practice in connections and maybe apply it in a literature and thought, something like that. So we start with great literature. These are rich selections, they're very complex, layered selections. There's a lot going on, so it's aggressively on level, all right? But then we apply our scaffolded close reading model so that all students really have a chance to dive deep and go beyond the surface of the text. The way that works is, and this is a research-based model that our authors and editors synthesized a lot of reading research and into this model. It turns out that there are 5 phases they sort of need to go through to acquire a new skill, so that they can apply it in increasingly complex ways. But also, how do you keep them engaged? That's what this is designed to do. So, establish purpose, we give them an objective. We develop questions about that text that we're about to read. We actually read the text, discover evidence. We annotate that evidence and mark it up and underline this and put a star by that. Based on what we found here, we analyze and evaluate that directly after we finish the read. We do a skill exercise that sort of takes the evidence that we found in phase 3 here and makes meaning of it, analyzes it, evaluates, makes meaning. And the last thing that the research says to help that skill really set in their brain so that they can transfer it to something else is to respond and share. So they can either do a writing assignment or speak and listen, have a classroom discussion. So this is kind of where that inquiry discussions would come in. So that's basically the connections close reading model. After we finish the first read, we actually give 2 more opportunities to dive back into that text because they are layered and complex texts. We want the students to dive deep and really extract more and deeper meaning. The first read typically focuses on the what. What are just the key ideas? What's going on in the passage? The second read is the how, the author's purpose. The third read is the why. What is the meaning of this text? Why is it meaningful to me or others? So that's our close reading model that is embedded into connections. And for us, it's all about the transfer. We work on skills here. We apply them in literature and thought, a novel, maybe another, maybe their social studies book, right? So you can think of it as this is kind of the practice and this is game time. There's no scaffolding help in literature and thought, but we do the same sort of thing that we do in literature and thought with the thematic units, but we apply that close reading model to scaffold the process. So just to review, 3 hardback titles with 8-year digital access, 8-year digital access for Essential Guide, and that's with the classroom set. This is 8-year digital access, 2 novels to have in your classroom, the digital suite, the 275 classroom library titles, including 90 of the high interest, low reading level, 30 hardcover Vocabulet, 30 of the connections books, and all the teacher materials come free.